for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? Today is Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Tonight, our guest is Ismael Perez, and we are going to discuss Our Cosmic Origin, which is the title. I'm holding it up here. The title of his new book. I've been reading it. It is a fantastic read. The links for it, I've got it in social media, and it's in our description and all of that stuff. You can chase that down, and also we've got his Instagram up there too as well. Ismael, before I get into, well, I'm going to not do a huge long bio read for Ismael because I want to say this. A few months ago, Ismael called into the show. And that night, I didn't, just called in, fate or not, and spoke to me at that time about Atlantis and a couple of other things. But it was a very interesting phone call. And after that, I was watching the chat. And of course, my reaction to the phone call was like, man, that's somebody we need to get on this show. And he reached out to me after that. But the point being, this weekend was the Conscious Life Expo, and I'm walking through, and Ismael comes up, and we meet in person. And here was the shocking thing. Here's the intro. So Ismael says, I'm busy. I'm a busy guy at Conscious Life Expo. He says, man, I'm speaking tomorrow, 1:00. You've got to come and check me out. And I didn't know my schedule at that time. We meet up again. I look at my schedule, squeeze it in, and I walk down, and I see this line. It's like, holy crap, what's going on? I went up to the back of the line. I said, who are you guys here for? Ismael. What? I looked down. I was like, what? And I walked past everybody. Being obnoxious, my ego coming into play. And I just walked past everybody, and I, walk into and I was like, oh my, the room was already packed. And there was another 100 people trying to get in, and they were about to be very upset. But anyway, here's the deal. The excitement and everybody that was there that has probably read the book and has been following Ismael was very excited to see and hear him speak. And I was able to do a brief introduction for him there, which I didn't expect to do. And we did that, got that out of the way, and announced to everybody that he was going to be on the show tonight. And for those that were in the hallway that couldn't get in, are probably here tonight. He is the author of Our Cosmic Origin. I've got it here. And in this book, he proposes the idea of mankind's origin was cosmic. And the book is a great read. And we're going to go through parts of that tonight. But it's also a very telling book. It's an intense book. It's a strong book. And it's got a lot of information in there, and everybody's going to enjoy reading it. With all of that, I'm going to get straight to it, and I'm going to say, Fade to Black welcomes Ismael Perez. There he is, Ismael. How you doing, my friend? Oh, I've got you muted. I muted you. Now you can do all of that over again. Okay.
How you doing, Jimmy?
Man, how you doing? That's the thing.
Oh, man, I am just on fire right now. I love the expo, meeting a lot of interesting people that are all part of this awakening movement. It was just electrifying. I mean, I'm still buzzing from the effects of all the high-vibing people that were there. It was beautiful, brother.
Yeah, totally. Now, before we get started, you get the first-time guest disclaimer. Okay, so let's get that out of the way, which is Ishmael. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. When the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, it ends.
Okay.
But we're going to end as friends. There you go. All right. Accepted. Accepted. Do the
Absolutely.
checkbox.
Yes, that works for me.
The next, I already know before we get started, after reading much of the book. Now, I just got back from Conscious Life. I have not been able to put the book down. It's a fantastic read, and I already know that you're going to do a few shows with us so we can do deeper dives into different sections of the book. Okay, so we'll do what we can tonight in this first show. Now, I'm going to start with the obvious. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
You're in shape. You're in shape. You're tall. You're you take care of yourself. You've got a physique that people like me, men like me, can only dream about. But you also look secret agent-ish, right? you almost look fed. And so you've got this look, but when people are walking down the street, Ishmael, and they see you, they don't see somebody that's writing books like this. That's not are you aware of that?
Very much so. Yeah, for the most part, the impression they get when they meet me is, are you a fitness trainer?
Right.
Or they say, are you an actor? You look like one of those Hollywood actors. I'm like, nope. So, nobody really knows that I have a thing for knowledge, that I've been, not only doing research for many, many years, but also I am a galactic ambassador who gets transmissions from galactic beings, particularly from the interstellar group known as the Galactic Federation. And so nobody really knows that about me. They don't know about my cosmic ambassadorship to the Earth. Most of the time people just assume that I'm some sort of fitness trainer, or I'm, a model or whatever. And, I guess I take it as a compliment, but, when the thing about that, Jimmy, is that when people assume that you're either a fitness trainer or a model, what goes with that, right? They think you're an airhead.
Yeah. You don't have a brain. And now I'm so glad you pointed that out. Now, you said, Galactic Federation a few times now. I don't, although it is mentioned in the book, yes, but what I think the book is about, and we'll get into all of this tonight, but I would love to get your reaction to this. I think the book is about science. It's consciousness, it's our past and that, and where we are and who we are and how do we get it. Yes. But your focus comes back, like every other paragraph, into science and what science is doing today to help support our past and where we are right now. And that's not an airhead, my man. That's not.
Well, I'm just assuming, that's what they think when they see me based on my appearance. But then when they get to talk to me, they're like, whoa, you are highly intelligent, sir. Little do they know that I've been, reading, that I've been doing research for many years and read over maybe 2,000 books in my whole life. I've been addicted to knowledge, Jimmy, ever since I was 16 years old. And yes, you're right. It is a book that integrates ancient metaphysical knowledge with cutting edge science to give a perspective about a greater understanding about our existence. Because, it appears that everything they teach us, the two major predominant theories that I would say the majority of the humans are taught comes from school, which is Darwinian evolution, which is very inaccurate and very false. And of course, the religious teachings of creation by this God who sits on the cloud and has, created everything in 7,000 years. And, for 7,000 years, we've been on this earth, and that's that. And you can't question anything else. So it seems like, we are, in a way, the majority of humans have been brainwashed, I guess, to just put it lightly. And so what I do in that book is I pretty much just, I break the iceberg, man. I kind of just tell it how it is, and a lot of that evidence does come from, quantum science. Thank God for quantum physics. I mean, ever since quantum physics came into the picture, since the 1920s, I mean, of course, it was one of those things where a lot of the scientists were trying to debunk quantum physics, but as they did more experiments, Jimmy, quantum physics proved to be real. I mean, you can't really deny the evidence, So quantum physics is really the avenue of science that has pretty much bridged the gap between ancient metaphysical knowledge, a knowledge that was once suppressed by the people who took over the affairs of this world. And it's now coming forward for a very particular reason. We are living in very, very presidential times, very crucial times, prophetic, whatever you want to call it. We're in the cusp of transitioning from one age to another world age. And so that explains why all this information that was once suppressed for thousands of years is now coming back into the limelight. It's just sad that for the majority of humans, they're still kind of just programmed and brainwashed by CNN, ABC, and what, their religious belief systems, that they're still in that box where they don't want to, really accept what's beyond the box. And so in a way, they're kind of stuck in the matrix. So
yeah, no, and that I think that is such a valuable point. One of the things that I cannot get away from, which drives my life and drives this show, and I think in turn drives the community, is that I'm all into the woo. I am, man. I love the woo. Whatever you want to define underneath that. I don't care if it's crop circles, life after death, consciousness, ET, visitations, Bigfoot, and beyond, right? I'm into the woo. And then it drives me, the more information that I gather, it drives me to the science, which I'm also fascinated with and I study. And the more that I look at the sciences and what they are saying and trying to get us to accept, they are talking about the woo, right? And the two are going to collide. And that's what your book is about. And I'm reading that, I'm like, he gets it. He gets it. And you lay it out really well. It's well written and so forth. And you do what is needed. The sciences out there need to read stuff like this and to understand that we're not going to bite their heads off. We need each other, right? The ancients knew this stuff a long time ago. We've got a gap in the middle, and we need to work together on this. And our community is the same way, right? We need to go and get the stuff blended together. And that's it. And that's where we are today at this point in history, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I did in that book, is I bridged the gap between cutting edge physics with all the evidence, not only coming from the avenues of quantum physics and theory, unified field physics, but also through the avenues of archaeological relics that have been unearthed within the last 30 years, which, by the way, have also been suppressed by the established academia, who is controlled by who. Can I say the word cabal here, or deep state?
You can do whatever you want.
I just want to make sure, by the cabal. And so what I do in that book is I bring in all this evidence and I integrate it with ancient metaphysical knowledge in order to explain the bigger picture. Earth's place in the multiverse, for once. Yes, we do live in a multiverse, and this has now been proven over and over through quantum science, that we're not just one universe, that our universe is part of many universes, but also that there's other dimensions. And so it's an attempt, Jimmy, to pretty much explain the bigger picture and Earth's relationship to the galactic community, and of course to the greater cosmic community.
Here, we're going to go backwards in just a second. I want to talk about you, the younger version of you. Okay. And so we'll circle back to that. But here's the thing, and I will continue to drive this point home. And you pointed out pretty well in the book. Oh, if I'm going to throw you under the bus on one point on the book, which you raise a fantastic point. but your numbers are too low. All right. So you point out in the book, it's elegant how you do it. You point out that there are millions of planets and how you get there, how you get to your numbers in just our Milky Way alone, and what supports, intelligence, life, and so forth. But that number's too low.
Well, there's a reason why it's too low.
But let me finish, and then I'll get to my point, though. That it's actually it's billions, maybe to the infinite, just in our Milky Way.
Right.
So therefore, right, the amount of intelligent life out there is a number that we don't quite wrap our head around. And so they communicate. They have to. They understand who is what, and they know where we are in that position, right? Mm-hmm. So if there would have to be some kind of federation. They're probably trading goods, interstellar travel, vacation spots. All of that stuff is going on. And it's just a numbers game, Ismael. And that's what you point out in here. And you do it really well.
Thank you. And you're right, Jimmy. Just within the Milky Way, there are billions of worlds, but not all of them are inhabited. Some of them are worlds that are still in a young phase where they're still kind of developing in order to harbor intelligent life. But within the Milky Way alone, there are millions upon millions upon millions of civilizations that are already at the level of type 1, which is interplanetary, and type 2, which is interstellar, which means that, yes, of course, there has to be a federation of some kind. We're considered type 0. Well, technically now we're like 0.9 because we're about to transition into an interplanetary system.
We might be 10 years away, right? I mean, we're like right there, but yeah, we're getting close for sure.
Exactly. So yes, just within the Milky Way, but let's go beyond the Milky Way. Our local universe, and the reason I say our local universe is out of respect to the fact that there are other universes. Just within our universe, Jimmy, there are billions of galaxies, okay? And imagine just within our universe how many civilizations exist. Now that's where the number gets into the trillions. So, many people's question would be like, well, okay, so if there's life on all these on all these planets and in all these galaxies just within our universe, why haven't they made contact with us, right? That's like the biggest question right now. And the answer to that question is they have, but not in front of the general public. They do it, covertly. They do it with certain government officials, and they have been since the 1930s. There has been collaborations within, by governments, well, shadow governments rather, because we do have two types of government. We have the surface government, right? And then we have the shadow government. So we could say that since the 1930s, the shadow government has been working out deals with some of these advanced civilizations. Some are nefarious, and then some are benevolent, because there are two forces out there, right? Just how you have benevolent positive ETs, we also have malevolent negative ETs. And so the whole point is this, is that, the good ones, let's just call them the benevolent ETs, those that are working within that are part of the Federation, which is an interstellar alliance of many advanced worlds that like to live in peace and in cooperation with each other. They do abide by what is known as a prime directive, which means that they are not allowed to intervene openly on any world that is still consciously and culturally and technologically underdeveloped until they reach a level of development, mainly consciously, spiritual maturity, and culturally and technologically, in order for them to prepare first contact with them, which means that they would be eligible for citizenship into the galactic community. But these are the main reasons why they haven't done that with us. First of all, we're still warring each other, So in their eyes, is like, all right, these guys are still very warlike. They're fighting each other over whose God is better than whose God, other God. They're fighting each other over which country is better than another country. So they see us as they've been seeing us as an immature race, but it's really, not us. It's really the powers that be. And so basically they have to follow protocol, which means like they just can't openly intervene. However, they are allowed to covertly influence things from behind the scenes. And so one of the ways that they were able to influence things from behind the scenes is that there is this thing called the Stargate Envoy program, which began in the 1940s and 50s. And there is a wonderful lady by the name of Dolores Cannon that spoke about this. She talked about the different waves of star seeds that have incarnated on the Earth since the 50s. And so now the next question would be, well, what is a star seed? A star seed is an extraterrestrial advanced soul that comes from a higher dimensional world, because again, we're dealing with other dimensions, and most of these interstellar and galactic civilizations do live and operate in higher dimensions beyond the third dimension. We're just kind of like in terms of dimensions, in like the spectrum of dimensions, we're like at the bottom. Our entire galaxy embodies up to 11 dimensions, and if you want to go up to the universe, beyond our galaxy, the universe embodies up to 12 dimensions. So imagine all those civilizations that exist all the way to the 12th dimension. Of course, they're highly spiritually advanced, and in some cases, they would appear to us to be immortal, and that explains why, people worship, when they do make an appearance in primitive worlds. It seems like the indigenous races always seem to see them as gods, and they're not gods. But going back to my point, Jimmy, the point is that the Starseed mission, the Envoy program, was implemented in order to bring forth advanced souls to the planet. And since the 50s, the first wavers came into incarnation, they came into human form, and that's how they do things. They embody, they incarnate in human form in order to raise the vibration of the entire planet, because even the planet is vibrating. Everything in existence is alive and conscious and therefore vibrating. Just like how we are vibrating, right? Our aura, right? Our aura is the resonance that emanates from us. Well, planets also have resonant fields. And so due to the fact that they incarnated in various waves, they were able to bring the planet, the collective energy of the planet, to a level where eventually they will get to the point where the planet would be ready for re-entry into the galactic community. So they have to do it in that way. They can't just openly intervene, show up in these huge motherships and say, all right, guys, here we are. You know what I mean? That would especially when the majority of humans are still under these religious programmings and these boxes of belief systems. I mean, it would completely shock the masses. So it's just, to them, it's more of a, let's incarnate, let's go into human form and, bring forth information, bring forth wisdom that would eventually reach critical mass until the majority of humans are ready to understand what space is, advanced technologies, free energy devices, replicators, portal tech, all that stuff. So that's how they do it. They do it through I don't want to call it infiltration, because it's not really infiltrating, but they incarnate in human form. So what I'm trying to say is that by now we should have at least 1 million star seeds on the planet, 1 million extraterrestrial souls in human form. And considering the 8 billion population of the Earth, that's still a very small percentage. But, a lot of these star seeds know that they're not from this Earth, and they're waking up and they're making a difference. In fact, the entire Conscious Life Expo was full of everyone. There was a star seed, and everyone there openly talked about where they were from. Well, I am a Pleiadian. Well, I am an Arcturian. I am an Andromedan. I come from the star system of Alpha Centauri. And only within, conventions like that, where we, the star seeds, are able to openly, freely talk about our extraterrestrial origin and where we come from. Because if I were to go to the local restaurant and tell the waitress, I come from the star system of Lyra, right? From the planet Avion, which was destroyed in the Galactic Wars, she's going to look at me and think I'm weird, or think that I'm, this guy's watching too much sci-fi. But when we go to like spiritual conventions, or at least conventions where people are awoke, where like-minded people go and mingle, then we freely talk about this stuff. And, and that's why I love the Conscious Life Expo.
Well, here's the thing. I almost feel like debating you right now. In a good way, in a spirited, in a nice way. In that, I'm not so sure if that is true anymore. This weekend at the Conscious Life Expo, as you know, we shot down 3 objects with missiles over North America. Right? That's crazy town right there. Missiles are flying over the United States and Canada. That's crazy. And then the statement today from a general at a press conference, he goes, I can't rule out aliens. No, and did anybody freak out? Did anybody? No, it's like everybody's ready for nothing surprises anybody anymore. And to have a general say that without any repercussions coming back, and the White House press secretary saying, look, everybody wants to know if this is aliens. Right? It's like, what? That's where we are today. Ismael, it's a good time to be here.
And do you know why we're there? Because of the Starseed mission that began in the 50s.
I think it's Fade to Black. I think it's this show. but
and
yeah,
of course, shows like yours. Your show is a huge.
Sure. Now, I wanted to go backwards. Let's get that out of the way because there's way too much to discuss tonight. Mm-hmm. I know that you use starseed when describing yourself. And you said that you started to do the deep dive into science and subject matter at the age of 16. Did you have an interest in this, or did something else happen when you were younger?
Well, to be quite frank with you, ever since I was about 5 years old, Jimmy, I felt like I didn't belong here. Like there was something different, something that I didn't quite understand about this world. I felt different, I was also
if you had arms like that, yeah.
No, I didn't have arms like this when I was 5. But the whole point is, all my life I knew I was different, and it was very hard for me to fit in growing up through school. I was always like the kid that sat in the back of the class and just looked up, having visions, but they thought I was just like spacing out. So I was a visionary my whole life. I didn't discover that I had a thing for knowledge until the age of 16 when I went to study philosophy and political science. The first book I've ever read was Plato's Republic, which I completely understood it. That's like a college university level textbook. You don't read Plato's Republic when you're 16 years old in high school. And then I started studying Socrates and Pythagoras. And so, the study of philosophy is what really got me into this path, to be honest with you. After I got into philosophy, around the age of 17, I read this book called Secret Societies. And then that's when I learned about the cabal, the secret society network, and how the world is being run and operated through these secret organizations. And then when I was about 21, I started getting transmissions. I started having visions, information about how Star Wars really took place. And I know people are like, wait a minute, you're telling me that George Lucas was telling us the truth when he wrote Star Wars? Yeah, exactly. Star Wars, the Galactic Wars, which just recently ended actually about 2 years ago, thanks to our super soldiers. And yes, people, we do have super soldiers. People, there is such thing as genetic enhancements, like when you watch Captain America. All that stuff is real, by the way. So the whole point is this: at the age of 21, I started getting downloads. I started having visions of these galactic wars that were taking place in our own galaxy. At first, Jimmy, I thought I was going crazy, and then I started researching. I started learning about how these secret societies that collectively make up what is known as the shadow government are in cahoots with off-world entities. And the reason our world has been under oppression and, facing negative human conditions and why people have been suffering for so long is because the shadow government secretly have been also taking their orders from an off-world group that comes from Orion that are called the reptilians. They come from Alpha Draconis. And so when I found out that the reptilians and also their secondary soldiers, the Greys, were the ones that were pulling the strings on the shadow government, it just totally just opened up the can of worms for me. And then ever since then, I went just deep into the rabbit hole, my friend, and I started researching stuff. In fact, I wrote my first book at the age of 25, and I titled it The Secret Government. revealing the truth about 9/11. It was totally an inside job, obviously. And now people are starting to, figure that out. I mean, I think we're living in a time where people are actually taking the red pill and not the blue pill, and they're waking up to the fact that we've been lied to about everything. And so when I wrote that book, I wrote about the secret history of the world based on the war between these two brotherhoods. We have the Luciferian Brotherhood, which is what mainly has been controlling the reins of power since the times of Babylon. In fact, you could trace these people all the way to Babylon, same ruling families, same bloodline throughout the different ages, who have been ruling the world from behind the scenes, who in turn have been controlled by the reptilians and the Greys. And then you have the Light Brotherhood. Now, who is the Light Brotherhood? Now, the Light Brotherhood is like people like, in the Dark Ages, like Galileo Galilei, Leonardo da Vinci, those Renaissance guys, the guys that brought us out of the Dark Ages, Joan of Arc, the guys that were burned at the stake, that were persecuted for their, for their scientific discoveries of how things really worked. and then of course they do have a history that can be traceable back to a secret society, Jimmy, that existed during the times of the Roman Empire that was known as the Community of Qumran, or the Essenes. The Essenes were a small group of benevolent healers and mystics that were existing during the times of the Roman Empire. And the reason they were a secret society was because they were trying to keep themselves in a way away from the eyes of the Roman Empire. So they operated in secret. And guess who was part of those secret societies? Jesus and Mary Magdalene. They were the high priest and high priestess. Yeah. So the Brotherhood of Light has always honored the sacred divine feminine. They've always believed in that balance, that balance between Father God and Mother God, that there is some sort of, equilibrium between the sacred divine feminine and the sacred divine masculine. And in so doing, I also found out that they were also networking with the ancient Druids, the Celtics, the original. I know some people might think, well, that's King Arthur kind of stuff, right? Merlin. But all this stuff is real. Those were the members of the Brotherhood of Light, of the real secret societies that existed in ancient times. Those were the good secret societies. So we have negative secret societies, which are associated with the Babylonian Luciferian Brotherhood. And then you have the benevolent secret societies, the good guys that are associated with the Holy Grail of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, because I know this might be triggering to some, but they did have a bloodline. They did have a child. And then, of course, they were connected to the Therapeutae of Egypt, which were known as the healers. And then, of course, to the ancient Druids, who were all about what? They were all about spirituality, mysticism, alchemy, everything that is now coming out, that has been coming out within the last 30 to 40 years due to this, massive acceleration of human consciousness, is attributed to these benevolent secret societies that have always existed in secret throughout the Dark Ages. And even after the crucifixion of Jesus, who was, the leader of the Essenes, by the way, there were other secret societies that later continued, the principles of having that direct connection to God, the principles that taught the principles of ascension, alchemy, spiritual sciences. And throughout history, they were known as the Gnostics, of course. And then, of course, we hear that the Roman Catholic Church, after the fall of the Roman Empire, through, again, the same brotherhood, Babylon, reorganized themselves as the Roman Catholic Church to what? To then persecute the Gnostics, those that believed in having a direct connection to God. Whereas the Babylonian Dark Brotherhood, through the organization or the restructuring of the Roman Catholic Church, were trying to what? Once again, sever the connection between man and God. And then that's when the Pope said, no one is allowed to have connections with God other than us. You guys just have to just take our orders. You guys have no connection to God. And so that was the schism between these two brotherhoods, right? And so now it's coming to the point, because we are going to be entering a new world age. The world is shifting. Things are changing dramatically for a reason, because of the fact that we are ending a long dark age that began 5,000 years ago when the the Cabal families, I don't want to say that word, the Cabal families took power, and now their time is up. And that's why things are now being revealed back, or being restored back to the earth, including extraterrestrial and cosmic knowledge, because that's a big thing of the restoration and liberation of the earth.
Let me, I'm going to clarify a couple of things because I don't want to have to explain the question. As I'm reading the book, a few things stood out, right? In the beginning, right? Heaven on earth, right? And you always did that all caps. And I'm reading, I'm like, oh man, is Ishmael, is this a biblical, is this a religious spin? Is this, what's going on? And no, it's not. But what you are saying right now, I want the audience to understand, there isn't a religious spin on this that you may be thinking. I'm going to allow you to clarify, by the way, Ishmael. In that, as I'm reading the book, the things that I have said on this show over and over again, and, with the help of, like L.A. Marzulli and other great researchers out there, when it comes to Bible research and knowledge and what is going on today in the ET presence and so forth, that the Bible is great science fiction that may be very, very accurate. If you look at it with a different set of eyes, right? And you do that really well in the book. But I want to ask you a question. I couldn't wait for you to come on the show so I could ask you this. Were you raised Christian?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And do you go to church today?
Oh, no.
Okay. That because your knowledge of the Bible in the book is like on point. But I keep, you keep reading the book. I'm like, wait. You can't be religious and talk about starships, right? But your tie-in with everything is quantum physics, entanglement, the metaverse. You know what I mean? Which, if you look at the Bible that way, then yes, of course, 5,000 years ago, and you're having these kinds of interactions and things, it's going to have a religious spin on it. There isn't another way for them to understand it, right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to do in this book is, it's not just written for those that are awakened or for the starseeds, but it's also written for those that are still trapped in the religious boxes, so that they could understand things in terms of what they know only, based on what they read in the Bible. Because the Bible is a metaphor also. It's written on different levels of understanding. In fact, the entire Old Testament, my friend, is all about UFOs and ETs.
It's all science fiction. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's come back to that. Let's stay where you were. Let's back up again, because you mentioned Jesus and the Romans and what was going on back then, and you said Jesus died, right? Well, you bring that up in the book too as well, and I want to address that because there are people who are listening. I don't want them to take this out of context. So let's start here. Heaven on earth. What do you mean when you put that in all caps?
What I mean by that is heaven on earth is directly describing a golden age. And that is what many call the age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment, the age of brotherhood and sisterhood. So, of course, I'm going to call it heaven on earth because it is a world where there is no more corruption, where there is no more injustices, where everybody has everything and in plenty, and everybody is under a universal, understanding of universal principles, and everybody respects everybody else. So that's why I call it heaven on earth. It's for people that are evolving, consciously speaking, that are, raising their vibration and understanding that they are God in embodiment, that they are the Christ, that there is no expected Messiah coming from the sky, that the second coming is all about the reemergence and the mentality, or what we call the rise of the Christ consciousness among people. And that's already happening in the millions of people. People are realizing that they are the Christ. And so that's what, to me, heaven on earth is. It's realizing that every single person is, God in embodiment. And it's also, according to the Eastern teachers, it's called enlightenment. Once you reach a certain level of enlightenment, you realize that God is an external thing. It's something that is within you, and then something that needs to be cultivated. In that sense, every single one of us is the expression of the one. And what do I mean by that? Well, the entire universe is held together by a unified field, right? And that is proven through science, right? It is the Force in Star Wars, the chi and prana of Eastern teachers, right? The Holy Spirit of Western mysticism. But it's all describing that one unified underlying field that binds all existence together. So as people become more aware and as they raise their consciousness, they come to understand that they are one with that field, it's almost like the metaphor that I'm going to use is the drop in the ocean are one, the water drop in the ocean are one. The entire ocean is contained within that drop. The holographic concept of reality, the entire universe is you, and you are the universe. There is no distinction. And once people realize that, that's what I call cultivating and realizing the Christ mind, which has nothing to do with religion, but it has everything to do with universal awareness. Universal awareness, realizing that your ecosystem, the star, the galaxy, the universe that you're in are all one body. Just like the billions of cells in your body, right? They're all part of the same, they're all working together for the greater organism. Right. Well, in turn, we are cells within the body of the universe. The same thing. It's all one unit. There is no.
Yeah, when I first started to read about this is many years ago, Christ consciousness, right? I was completely turned off. Not that what it was, using the word Christ, right? And I'm reading it over and over again. I'm like, man, no, don't suck me into some religious thing. But no, and then I found out what Christ consciousness is. And now it's a totally different thing. But for people out there that don't understand and they hear that, for many, it's immediate turnoff. Like this is some pitch for a religious cult, and it's simply not. So when we say Christ consciousness, how do you define it?
Well, there's also another terminology called Buddha consciousnness.
Yes.
So what that means is universal awareness, is realizing that you are one with everything. You are the unified force, that you, as well as you are local, as well as you are an individualized unit of personality, you're also part of the greater whole. There is no distinction between me and you. We're different expressions of one. Check this out, Jimmy. Everyone on the planet, in fact, everyone in the universe is a different expression of one unified mind, of one cosmic mind exploring itself through the many. I know if that.
No. Okay, so now let me help you out.
Sure.
All right. No, help me out.
Sure.
It's this. When the quantum world of physics and engineering right now, especially in quantum computing and entanglement, is continuing their research and completing things. By the way, they made a huge jump today in quantum computing. The press release came out today that they are on a chipset now moving large amounts of quantum data back and forth. And I'm reading the press release, right? And check this out, Ismael. Well, I'm not making this up, but for everybody else, they're going movements of particles through different dimensions, right? This is in the press release. This is like, wait a minute. So if you want people to buy into this, and we are, right? Well, then therefore, they are talking about a Christ consciousness. They are talking about an entanglement of all that there is. And this is science coming back to us. Yeah.
Exactly. So instead of saying Christ consciousness, let's just call it universal consciousness.
Yeah.
How's that?
No. I wanted to get that definition out of you so people understand. Don't get tied into the word. Understand what is behind it.
Exactly. I agree.
Okay. Now, so with that, let's go back to Jesus. Let's go back to Jesus. Can we go back to Jesus? Because you make these direct references in the Bible, and you said that, Jesus died. So assuming from your perspective that Jesus was real, okay, for me, I'm still on the fence about that, trying to figure it out. I wasn't there, but here's the thing: when he split, right?
Mhm.
Well, didn't he come back 3 days later? Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah,
Well, what he did is he ascended into his fifth dimensional light body. In other words, he reached a level of consciousness. Again, he was the high priest of the ancient mystery school teachings. All right, he was the ultimate master, and there is evidence that he went to India to learn from the yogis when he was a young lad, about 13 and 14, and then he also went to Tibet to learn from the Buddhist monks, and he also went to where? Egypt. So he traveled a lot during his so-called missing years, and that's why they don't cover his missing years, because they knew that he was the one that was going to bring everything, bridge the gap, bring everything together under one universal understanding. And so
right.
the problem I have with religion is that Jesus never taught religion. What he came to do is he came to teach universal awareness. That's what he came to teach. He came to teach a knowledge that is now coming out, that is now coming forward. And a lot of the people out there who are considered light workers, light warriors, star seeds, they are all examples of this knowledge. This is an ancient teaching that he taught. Never did he he didn't even know what a Christian was. And so when he taught this knowledge about universal awareness, right, he was speaking in parables, right? When he said, do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. He would say things like, to his apostles, he would say, the kingdom of God is not to be expected, and it's not over there or over here. It is within you. So what was he saying? The kingdom of God is what? Enlightenment, is understanding that you are it, that there is nothing to attain. And so that's what he came to teach. But what happens is that the powers that be, when the Roman Empire fell, they needed another reason to reorganize. And so the fallen Caesars, what they did is they took off their togas and they put on religious robes and they twisted his teachings. And that's when they created the Roman Catholic Church. So the Roman Catholic Church is the second Babylon. It is the Luciferian institution that has been running our world for 1700 years. And that is the reason why all the mystics throughout the dark Middle Ages, or the real followers of Jesus, the so-called Gnostics, were always sought after and killed.
There's a bolt of lightning about to strike right behind you. So here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. I watched it, and yes, right, I agree. And when the Romans made that move, right, God supports the Roman government. Therefore, the Roman government is God. What a way to just turn that around on the people so that religion and government are suddenly one and the same thing. And God approves of the Roman government and Senate. A very strong, smart thing to do. But I just watched a documentary the other day on this subject, and it was fascinating. But they also proposed in this documentary that Jesus was also a creation of the Roman government. And I thought that was a pretty interesting spin. What a strong way to do it if you're going to go ahead and control the masses. But in your book, you suggest, I'm going to ask you now, that that Jesus was E.T., and that heaven is not in the clouds, but heaven is the entire universe, encompassing of everything, right? I'm not getting this wrong in the way that you laid it out, right?
It's also related to a particular dimension. It's called the fifth dimension.
Yeah, no, we'll come back to that. No, yeah, I like where you're going. So if that is the case, you also state in the book that there are different regions of the universe. There are other, I almost said kingdoms, areas where there are the same situation is going on at a different space of evolution. Right? Am I making sense there? Where we've got our thing going on with Jesus, but there's also the same situation going on out there somewhere else.
I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say. Well, let's see. Okay, so basically Jesus, in a way, he was an ET. He was one of the first.
Actually, you know what? I said that wrong. Different multiverses.
Yes, exactly. Every multiverse
is going on.
Okay, so let me explain it like this. every universe has a omni king and an omni queen, right?
Yes.
Overseeing each universe. In this case, they call them the order of the Michaels, right? Michael, Michael the archangel. So every time the Michaels, in order for them to become master sons of their local universe, they have to go through 7 major initiations or 7 bestowals. And the 7th bestowal for each Michael, in order to be overseer and absolute son of that creation, is he has to undergo where he goes to the lowest planet, which exists in the lowest density, and undergo persecution, in this case crucifixion, in order for him to ascend back to his throne and become absolute son or master son of his own creation. Because before he completes the 7 bestowals, he's only ruling his creation as a vicegerent son of God in relationship to the motherverse, or to the central universe, because each universe is also connected to a central universe. Now, the difference between a local universe, which are many, multiple, hundreds, millions of them, and the mother universe, is that the mother universe is the realms of eternity. The mother universe is what scientists call base reality, whereas the local universes are the experiments in time and space, or the emanations, rather, or what we call simulations. And so that is the difference between a local universe and the always existing realms of the mother universe.
Okay. Yeah. Now, based on that, let's say that there's 50 billion planets just in our Milky Way with the possibility of life. And then underneath that, we take a small percentage, and we've got 100 million advanced ET civilizations, right? ETCs. Is Jesus on every one of those planets?
No. Okay. Let me just explain it this way. Okay. So the universe is a conscious entity, right? The universe is also a living being at a macro scale of reality. So the universal mind, which manifests in the form of the omni king, omni queen, overseer of each universe, right? The mind has the ability to manifest itself into human form, is what incarnates in order to complete his 7th bestowal, so that universe could become eternal and connected to the central mother universe, which are the realms that have always existed. So even the universe, my friend, goes evolutionary, or undergoes evolutionary completion, just like how we have to evolve. So the universe also goes through a process where its consciousness has to evolve. And if it doesn't evolve in the nick of time, that universe has to reincarnate. And so that's why we have universe sometimes that collapse, and then through a white hole, they're reborn again in order to see if they could now undergo whatever it needs to master in order for it to become part of the eternal life systems of the mother universe. So that's because of the fact that each universe is a conscious entity. So we could equate the mind of Jesus to the mind of the universe, which is the incarnating universe in the flesh. And so according to deep spiritual knowledge known as the Ra material, or what they call the teachings of Ra, it says that that every universe has is a logos. So now, what is a logos? And for those that understand or study the esoteric mystical knowledge, the logos is the universal mind of each universe. And so the universal mind of each universe has the ability to incarnate and manifest physical form, or incarnate into physical form.
Now, does consciousness exist in the physical first? Or does the physical start and then consciousness exist outside of the physical?
Consciousness has always existed.
Right. So
yeah, everything
outside of the physical.
Outside of the physical. Consciousness is the intangible. It is the non-physical, the unmanifest that became manifest through the process of descent, or through the process of division or fragmentalization. Mm-hmm. That's when spirit, right, eternity, through the lowering of frequency, becomes denser and denser until it becomes material. So we could say that when we pierce into the skies and we only see the galaxies, that's just the physical part, which is a very small fragment of something that has always existed beyond that. So we could say that consciousness is at the root of all creation.
So, if that's the case, how did we forget all of this? Right? 5,000 years ago, we had a grip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seemed like we got it, and then it just fizzled and it went away. Why is that?
Well, you have to understand, during the times of Atlantis, the human race had existed during those days, approximately 20 to 50,000 years ago. Actually, Atlantis has been around for 100,000 years before it was infiltrated by the reptilians of Orion, right? The fallen angels. Everybody was in a heightened state of consciousness. What I mean by that is everybody understood this knowledge. Back then, people lived for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, the original Adam and Eve were light beings that never died. And through a process of descending, of condensing, eventually they became physical. So we come from that. We don't come from monkeys. It's actually the other way around. We come from above. We come from the always existing realms, has whole light beings of light. And through the process of involution, not evolution, through the process of descent, we go into lower densities until we become congealed. So right now we are experiencing the lowest level of this, spectrum of different energy, matter vibrating at different frequencies, from the most subtle, which is matter vibrating at pure frequency, which is light, to the most gross, which is matter vibrating at the lowest frequency, which appears to become solid.
Is that is that an explanation of why we use such a small percentage of our DNA? That at one point we used more of it and took advantage of that?
Yes, because during the times of Atlantis, we were actually using 12 strands of DNA.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, scientists have recently discovered that we don't just have 2 double strands. We have 10 are disconnected.
Is that in the book? I didn't get to that yet.
Yeah, it's in the book.
But I agree with that.
That's after the chapter where I explain the entire galactic history, going back to the Lyran, the origins of humanity, the real cradle of human beings, our ancestors come from Lyra. And then, of course, I explained the wars with the reptilians of Orion and how we ended up here and the different seedings that took place even before Atlantis. I mean, that book is deep. I mean, for those that want to go deep in the rabbit hole, this is...
it's right there, man. It's a great read. Stay right there. We're going to take a quick break. Our guest tonight, Ismael Perez. I've been waiting for this show. Stay right there. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. And we'll be right back. Check out Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv, where you can get access to over 6,000 videos, movies, TV series, exclusive documentaries like the Black Knight Satellite. You can do it all for just $7.77 per month or $77 per year after the 3-day trial, which is also totally free to check out. It's all simple to do. Billy Carson is the best. It's simple. ForbiddenKnowledge.com or ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's the number 4BK. I will be hosting and emceeing the Conscious Life Expo this February 10th through the 13th at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. 200 speakers, including Linda Moulton Howe, Bashar, Deborah King, George Norrie, Daniel Sheehan, Scott Walter Johnstone, and David Wolf. Over 200 vendors, special events. This is the biggest event of its kind on planet Earth. You've got to come and hang out with all of us. Tickets and info at ConsciousLifeExpo.com. The links are below. On Saturday, April 1st, that's right, April Fool's Day, 2023, I will be hosting the Parapod Festival at the Hyatt Regency right here in Valencia, California. It's a live one-day podcast awards. It's a film festival. It's a full-on media event. We're going to have sky watching. There's going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Linda Moulton Howe. Right now, you can submit your podcast, your film, your TV series, any of your paranormal media for consideration. You can do all of that on the links below. For info and tickets, go to parapodfilmfest.com. That's parapodfilmfest.com. April 7th through the 14th, 2023, I'll be hosting and presenting on the Hidden Secrets Seminar at Sea Cruise. From Los Angeles to the Mexican Riviera on the Navigator of the Seas. That's right, up top, a giant water slide. You've got to check out the Navigator of the Seas. It's amazing. We've got Scott Walter, Adam Apollo, Nick Pope, Brad Olson, Vivian Chauvet, Jason Shirka, Robert Grant, Ruben Langdon, and another 12 amazing speakers and presenters. It's all simple to do. Just visit divinetravels.com/Hidden Secrets 2023. You know you want to go on a cruise with me. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Yes, River Moon Coffee. I don't know about you, Ishmael. If it wasn't for coffee, this world wouldn't. We would be a type -0. No question about it. I want to in the second half of the show. I want to go back and go through the history of our of the Milky Way in general. The universe is a big place. I don't have that kind of time on this show, but we could discuss that and then morph that into eventually where we are right now on planet Earth and a brief history of that too as well. Because, and the reason for this is, our planet's 4.5 billion years old. We don't know how old Homo sapien is if we go with orthodox dating on things. We just appeared here 200,000 years ago and just poof. We don't have an explanation for that. And no, Darwin was wrong. But so we have that in how we evolved to where we are today. Well, there must be stuff going on way before us. What is the history of the Milky Way?
Okay, so the history of the Milky Way goes back to about 560 million years ago. It all began when Earth, okay, so first let me explain that Earth is existing in other dimensions. So right now we're currently living in the third dimensional Earth, which is Earth in a fallen state. Before the Earth fell into this lower state, it existed in the fifth dimension, and that was during the times of Atlantis, where mankind was living for thousands and thousands of years, and we were all healthy, and we were all young and didn't age. And so, but before that, the original Earth came into existence in our universe on a constellation known as Lyra in the star system of Vega in the galactic sector known as Sirius B, and that was in the 8th dimension. So the original Earth that came into existence in our universe was an 8th dimensional Earth. Okay, it was very multi-dimensional reality. It was still physical, because bear in mind that physical matter vibrates at different frequencies all the way up to the 12th dimension, my friend. So we could say that the 12th dimension is where the universe, the point of where the universe began, that came from the 12th dimension. And in fact, there is a 12th dimensional Earth as well that exists at the center of our universe. So going back to our galaxy, the 12th dimensional Earth is quasi-material. It's more etheric than it is material. So in order for there to be materialized life, energy has to condense. Otherwise, it's just going to be pure ether. It's going to be matter that is very subtle, and it looks like it's more like liquefied than it is solid. So the original Earth began in Lyra on a star system called Vega on a planet called Avion. Now, Avion is also corresponding to what the mystics called Gaia. Okay, so the Earth was originated in Lyra when it was in the 8th dimension, because even the Earth has been falling in densities and dimensions, right, all the way to the 3rd, due to this war against the reptilians, right, what the Bible calls the fallen angels. Again, I'm making correspondence to the different texts, but they're all one and the same. Angels are benevolent ETs. Demons are reptilians, okay? So it all, just giving you guys the bigger picture. So from Lyra, when the Earthlings first came into existence, our original ancestors, they were eighth dimensional beings. In other words, they were immortal. They didn't die. They didn't age. They lived forever. And for about 1 million years, they lived in peace. Now, bear in mind that they were so advanced that they had a heightened consciousness, and everything they did, Jimmy, was through the power of their consciousness. In other words, instead of using technology or external machinery, they would fuse their consciousness with the living crystals of that earth, the eighth dimensional earth, the stones and the elements, to build beautiful architectural cities and worlds. It was all based through the power of their own mind, because they were in a symbiotic relationship with Mother Gaia, eighth dimensional earth, and everything was fine. So if somebody were to go back in time and see what it was like, they would say, oh my God, these guys are like wizards. You know, they're telepathic, they're levitating objects with their mind, they're controlling the elements. Oh my God, they're gods. They would look at or appear as gods. But again, these were our original ancestors, okay? So when they were first created, they popped in from an already other existing reality that came from the 12th dimension, okay? So we had two races that helped in the development of the early human race. The first race was a feline race. Yes, people, the cat people who had hominid bodies and cat-like heads are also real. And they were the guardians and the biological engineers of all life in our Milky Way and in our universe. And then also,
I'm going to stop you right there. This popped up in the chat 2 minutes ago before you brought it up. What are cats then? and you know, that popped up in the chat, and then you just said that. I just find that fascinating. That's how great this audience is. Okay, so continue, cat people.
Okay, so the felines, there was 49 felines that had assisted the first human development here in our universe in the eighth dimension, that came from an already completed or ascended universe. Again, when a universe ascends, it connects to the eternal life systems of the always existing motherverse, because there is a motherverse that has always existed, you know, that doesn't exist in time or space like the local universes do. Okay, so we also had 49 karyons, avian-like people, that were bird-like people, that were in charge of developing the different stargates and portals that connect all the solar systems and planets to one another. So there is evidence, again, on our planet, that there is about 48 different stargates, right? One of them being located underneath the Sphinx. So when people read about Machu Picchu, Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, all these megalithic structures were built on one of these power centers or these stargates. And then there's a reason for that. Okay, so going back to the story. So the original humans, when they were protected by the feline race, and they were taught to live in harmony with everything. In other words, they operated according to the philosophy of unity consciousness. They didn't understand duality. They didn't understand differences, wars. They saw everything as one. They were one with their ecosystem, similar to the Pandorians in the movie Avatar. That's a perfect example of what these Lyrans were. And they were also one with the universe. So they didn't understand duality. They lived according to universal consciousness. Okay, so at the same time, they were able to live in peace for about 1 million years. And through their advanced consciousness, they were able to develop spacecraft that were extensions of their own light body. In other words, they were able to use the elements of the earth to create organic spacecraft in which they use their mind to fuse their consciousness with their spacecraft. And so when they navigate it, they don't use it, they don't like drive it like that. What they do is they sit on their spacecraft, because it's an organic vehicle made from the elements of their planet, and they control it with their consciousness. They're in telepathic communication with their ships. And that's how they were able to go and colonize the surrounding star systems, like Avalon, planet Avalon. And that's where we get the concept of King Arthur again. You know, there's a lot of truth in myth. So they colonized Avalon and the different star systems associated with the Lyra constellation. And they decided to move beyond Lyra. Okay. Now, while that was happening, it took them about 1 million years to explore beyond Lyra. Okay. At the same time, there was another group of ETs that just popped into existence in the lower Orion belt on a planet called the Regal, on a planet called Regal in the star system of Draco, and they were known as the Reptilians. Now, the Reptilians were made by what we know as Lucifer. Okay, Lucifer is the father of all reptilians. So Lucifer was the first Draco. So Lucifer created or so we could say that the fallen angels, right, in the Bible are the ones that came into existence in Orion as the reptilians. So the reptilians weren't connected to this, heightened consciousness. They weren't connected to the elements. They were disconnected from the universal life force. They were disconnected from source, from God consciousness. So they obviously needed to depend on technology. So something that the reptilians did is immediately they developed, mechanical machinery, external technology, because to them, they had no connection to God. Okay, that was part of them disconnecting from the unity consciousness before they fell into our universe. And many believe that these reptilians were actually dropped off in our galaxy in lower Orion by an advanced AI that actually comes from another universe. Okay, so they ripped a hole in the fabric of space and time in order to drop off these reptilian species, which were also operating under a different philosophy or a different mentality. Now, their mentality, as opposed to the Lyrans, which was unity consciousness, the reptilians had a different philosophy of service to self. In other words, they were all about, conquering worlds. They were all about manipulation, justifying the end or the means to meet the end. They were all about, they were told that anything that they came across, it was theirs to conquer. And this is the way they were genetically programmed. So when we think of this concept of totalitarianism, fascism, it's all genetically related, my friend. And that's why the cabal families, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds that rule this world are in a way they suffer from having a lot of reptilian genetics in their DNA. They do. They're actually human reptilian hybrids. Okay. So basically what happened was the reptilians, due to their genetic programming, it was embedded in their DNA to operate with the philosophy of service to self, which was very selfish, very dominating, very narcissist. Okay. And so they were told that the universe was theirs to conquer. And so they went about, through their external technology, they went about to expand beyond the Alpha Draconis system, and they started conquering nearby solar systems. So the first solar systems that they conquered was the Rambola system, which consists of Zeta Reticula 1 and Zeta Reticula 2, and that's where the grays come from. And then from the Rambola system, they went over to the Betelgeuse system, conquering the different solar systems all around the constellation of Orion. So that's why they're called the Reptilians of Orion, because they came from the lower belt of Orion. And little by little, they were building their vast empire, right? They were a strong military race, similar to the Nazis. They didn't care. They would approach these underdeveloped worlds where the people were still indigenous, and they would completely just vanquish them and conquer them without giving them a say-so. No diplomacy was involved. They would just openly arrive and conquer planets. Okay, now on the other hand, on the other side of the galaxy, the Lyrans were actually expanding according to the law of unity consciousness, which implies service to others, which is opposite to service to self. So they were all about service to others, okay? And so whenever they came across a planet that was underdeveloped, where the species was still, indigenous, they would take care of them. They would actually offer, solutions, resources. They would help them advance and evolve. Instead of conquering them, they would uplift them. So that was the difference between the original Lyrans and the Reptilians. Now, this is where we had the first conflict between these two opposing specimens. The Lyrans went to explore the Ring Nebula. And at the same time, when they were there, we had a few scouting ships from the Orion Reptilian section come over to the Ring Nebula. And these scouting ships were first amazed. They were like wondering, how the heck are these people moving objects with their mind? Who are these people? Are they magicians, wizards? What the heck is going on here? They don't need technology. Everything they're doing is, they're levitating, they're communicating telepathically. What's up with these people? So the reptilians, when they first encountered the Lyrans, they were shocked. They were shocked because they didn't understand why they were so benevolent, why the Lyrans were so peaceful, and why they were living in harmony with other species. So to the reptilians, that was like a huge shock. So these scouting ships went back to Orion to report to the Draco generals of the Alpha Draconi system, and they give the report. They gave the report. They said, "Hey, we've came across another spacefaring species, but they're actually not conquering the galaxy. What they're actually doing is they're spreading this love and light hocus pocus, and they seem to be very magical. They don't use aircraft like we do. Their aircraft is an extension. It's an extension of their body. They materialize their spacecraft as an extension of themselves, and we don't understand how that works." So they were kind of confused. So now the Draco generals said, "Okay, those are the enemies. Those are the enemies. Those are the ones that we need to kill off, the galactic humans from Lyra." So they were given a protocol. The protocol was to kill off the Lyrans. And so the reptilians came back to the Ring Nebula, and because they had weapons and the Lyrans didn't have weapons, the Lyrans didn't understand war. They didn't understand conflict. They saw everything as one. So in a way, the Lyrans were shocked as to why these reptilians were just there trying to destroy as many worlds as possible, and why they were attacking them. So instead of fighting them back, the Lyrans, who were service to others, eventually were massacred. Okay, so that event is what set the stage for the beginning of the Galactic Wars. Now, some Lyrans were able to flee and escape, while the rest of them were killed. And according to to the galactic records, about 500 Lyrans were killed in the Ring Nebula when the reptilians first launched a preemptive strike against them. The remaining Lyrans went back to Lyra, to planet Avion, to report the situation. And the Council of Elders, which was then ruled by a benevolent overseer that represented the lineage of Michael. Again, a lot of this ties into the children of Michael being the Lyrans. The 12 houses of Israel were also known as the 12 royal houses of Lyra. Have reported to Michael, to the lineage of Michael, the king embodying his son, known as King Amelius of the Council of the Elders, that this nefarious group was out there destroying, and that they had killed about 500 of their kind. And then that's when Amelius, who was many believe he was an incarnating version of Michael, decided to tell the Lyrans of planet Avion and planet Avalon to flee into other star systems, to escape the desecration and Holocaust that was underway, because they knew that the reptilians were now eventually going to go to Lyra to kill off the Lyrans. Because again, the reptilians were given a protocol and a directive, and that directive was to kill off the Lyrans, because the Lyrans were the ones that, according to their prophecy, would be the ones that would prevent them from bringing about a galactic empire. Okay, so what ended up happening was King Amelius, who was at the head of the Council of Elders of Lyra and the 12 houses, each representing one of the 12 major universes, because we are part of 12 creations. Our Earth, our galaxy, and our universe is part of the 12th creation, and that explains why everything's in the numerical value system of the 12 constellations, the 12 houses of Israel, the 12 chakras, so on and so forth. So 12 is the numerical number that we operate under, due to the fact that we're part of the system of the 12. So going back to this history. So what happened was Amelius, by decree, he was able to safeguard and protect a lot of the Lyrans by telling them to flee to the different parts of the galaxy and to other galaxies. And so they did. And that event became known as the Lyran Diaspora. That event was the event that eventually allowed for humans to go into Andromeda, to go to different parts of the Milky Way, and then also to go to other galaxies within our universe in order to preserve the human galactic genetics. Because if it wasn't for that event, what would have happened, Jimmy? We would have never been here on this Earth. This Earth would have been ultimately controlled and inhabited by reptilians. In fact, the entire galaxy would have been inhabited by reptilians. If the reptilians were to achieve their goal, or their what was called their directive of killing off all the Lyrans, which were the ancestors of all human beings in our universe. No human, no Pleiadian, no Andromedan, those that are human of human origin would have existed, in other words. So that event needed to happen. So under the direction of Amelius, many Lyrans fled in order to repopulate different parts of the universe in order to preserve the human blueprint. Okay. So eventually, unfortunately, for the remaining Lyrans, including Amelius, who sacrificed himself in that war, they were killed off. And then for the first time, as they were torturing these Lyrans, these reptilians, that is, they figured out that when a human is under torture, when a human is being, tortured, when a human is being killed, they secrete a hormone that the reptilians feed off of. And that later became known as loosh. So the reptilians figured out that when humans are in a state of suffering, that they secrete a hormone that eventually feeds them and allows them. It's like a hit of heroin. It gives them a high. It gives them energy. And so that's when loosh first came about. That's when they realized that by inflicting human suffering, their energy becomes enhanced. They become more, high. They get a high off of that. And so they get addicted to that high, right? Just like a drug addict. And so that event is what started off the Galactic Wars. So that was known as the Lyran Diaspora, which was followed by the Lyran Massacre. Now, luckily, because of the fact that many Lyrans fled to the Pleiades, okay, so even the Pleiades or the Pleiadians were ones from Lyra. The Andromedans were ones from Lyra. We could say that all galactic human civilizations, my friend, originated from Lyra. Lyra is the cradle of all human galactic civilizations. And what ended up happening was a group of Lyrans went over to Orion, to the upper region of Orion, and they were known as the masculine Lyrans, because now they were trying to balance out with technology. So not only were they using advanced consciousness, but they were also developing external technology. So they became known as the masculine Orions, whereas those that were spiritually oriented without the external technology were known as the feminine humanoids. So we had now two galactic distinct humans: the masculine humanoids that were now beginning to develop technology, and the feminine humans. Now, the feminine humans, a small portion of them did survive, and they went over to Sirius B, in order to reorganize. And that's when they started creating what became known as the Guardian Alliance. Now, the Guardian Alliance came into existence when certain members of other universes came to the aid of the Lyrans. And on the planet called... I guess in the star system of Sirius B, they came together. Over 200 million civilizations from across the universe came together, and other universes, to create the intergalactic, interdimensional alliance of free worlds. And this is before the establishment of the Galactic Federations. Now, many in the galactic community call it the Covenant of Palador or the Emerald Order. And so that's the first intergalactic alliance that took place in our universe on Sirius B. So Sirius B, since then, became the governing body, you could say, of the forces of light, as they were receiving aid from members of other universes. Okay, so what ended up happening was a portion of the Lyrans were deceived by the reptilians, and this portion later went over to the Orion sector to work with the reptilians, and they were manipulated into service to self. In other words, they joined the reptilians in their conquest of galactic domination. And they later became known as the Nordics, and they settled on a star system known as Aldebaran. And of course, later on in another episode, I could explain how the secret space program began when Maria Ostrich and the Secret Society of the Thule, which is a secret society that Hitler belonged to, made contact with the Aldebarans. But that's another segment. Okay, so going back to the galactic history. So the Nordics of Aldebaran decided to side with the reptilians, betraying Amelius, the son of Michael, betraying the law of one, betraying unity consciousness, which is universal awareness. I'm not going to call it Christ consciousness, but it is Christ consciousness. Let's just call it universal awareness. Sure. And so at the same time, that's when the Syrian High Council decided to create a Battlestar planet. Okay, so what they did is, after the reptilians destroyed the original human world in Lyra, known as Planet Avion, a chunk of Avion was later developed into the Battlestar planet that later became Nibiru. Now, this was the original Nibiru, okay? The original Nibiru was actually known as the Defender of the Galaxy. So in its initial creation, Nibiru was actually part of the Syrian High Council. It was developed by the Syrian High Council. And then another chunk of Avion, which was the 8th dimensional Earth, was luckily captured by the Alcyon system, which is here in the Pleiades, and then became part of the system of the Pleiadians. And that's when that chunk reincarnated as planet Tiamat. So this was the original Earth. Going back to 4 million years ago, it was a super Earth. Now, before I get to that point, let's go back to Sirius. So in Sirius, they developed the Battlestar planet, and they also created, based on this interdimensional, intergalactic alliance of free worlds, they created a race of warriors that was supposed to eventually combat the reptilians. And so what happened was, an advanced race that operates from the center of the galaxy, which is a non-physical race, was able to mix with the Lyrians, the 12 houses of Lyra, to create the original house of Elohim. This is where we get the concept of the guardians, right? The gods, whatever you want to call them. So
the watchers, the guardians, yes.
Yeah, the guardians, the watchers. So they originated, they established themselves in Lyra, okay? And so...
can I jump ahead? No, then we're going to come back.
Okay, go ahead.
Was Jesus Lyran?
Yes, he was.
Okay, let's go back now. Let's go back to the Elohim.
Okay, so the Elohim was created, and the Battlestar planet Nibiru, which was developed from the chunk that survived the exploded planet Avion, became known as the Defender of the Galaxy. So the race that was established to patrol and navigate the Battlestar Nibiru was known as the Anuhasi race. And this is before they later became translated as the Anunnaki. Again, even Zacharias Sitchin was compromised. So the original Guardian race was known as Anuhasi.
You might be right there. You might be right. Hey, I'll tell you a little secret.
Sure.
I can't say who or how I heard this. Sitchin channeled his stuff. You like that? Now, okay, so maybe you're going to jump into this now. Was Marduk on Nibiru? Was this part of the history?
Well, Marduk was the son of Enki. Enki was Poseidon to the Greeks. I'm going to get to that point.
I love this. Okay, keep going.
Okay.
Notes, man. I'm writing feverishly, and I'm going to go back and reference all of this in the book. This is great.
Thank you. So afterwards, the Guardian race was developed, the original Anuhasi race. So now we had an established warrior race that was both physical and non-physical. In other words, they were operating on different multiple dimensions. They were like the Jedis. They had telekinetic powers. And so everything they did was like they had abilities, like supernatural abilities. And so that's how they were able to combat what became known as the expanding reptilian empire. Now, bear in mind that the traders that went to Aldebaran, the Nordics, later reorganized themselves with the reptilians as the Orion Empire. Okay, so now the Orion Empire wanted to expand beyond Orion. And at the same time, what they ended up doing was they ended up enslaving the humans that went to the upper regions of Orion, the peaceful masculine humans that were trying to balance their spirituality with technology. They were eventually enslaved by the Orion Empire, which was now reorganized from the Draco Empire. After seducing the certain Lyrans that became the Aldebarans, later reorganized as the Orion Empire. And then the first thing they did is they enslaved the humans within the upper system of Orion. So that's when slavery first happened within the history of our universe or our galaxy in Orion. Many humans were enslaved. And a group of them, a small chunk of them, decided to rebel. They decided to create a resistance, and they became known as the Black League of Orion. And the reason they called themselves the Black League of Orion was because they were operating in secret. And this parallels a lot of the stuff that George Lucas writes about when he talks about the galactic resistance, right? The rebels. So the first rebels were the humanoids in Orion, the galactic humans that were enslaved, that decided to combat and fight the slavery. They became known as the Black League of Orion. While that was happening, under the direction of the Anuhasi race, the new warrior race that comes from Sirius B, right, that is operating the Battlestar Nibiru, we also had the different humans that went to the Pleiades, to different like Alpha Centauri, Epsilon, Eridani, the Centaur system, different systems. Like I think over 200,000 systems by now. The humans were repopulating in our galaxy. They were also forming different confederations or coalitions of light. And under the council, or under the direction of the Syrian High Council, it was ordained to come together in unity, because the expanding Orion Empire was already taking over a huge chunk of the Milky Way. They were just conquering world after world after world, okay? And so what ended up happening was all these different stellar human star systems, or what they're known as star nations of galactic humans, came together as one group, and that's when they established the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. And that event took place approximately 5 million years ago. And go ahead.
Man, I've got a whole page of stuff here. Okay, let's jump back for a second. I want to talk about string theory just really quick. When we talk about 12 dimensions, Brian Greene and string theory, and what it proposes is that there are 12 dimensions. And they're working on that math right now. Now, for everybody out there to go and say, hey, wait a minute here, because we can understand up, down, forward, and back, and then throw in time. Okay, so we can kind of understand these 4 basic dimensions. But string theory is going straight at 12 dimensions. Now, he explains why really well, and that the math is supporting this. But everything that you are mentioning here, science is doing their best to show this to us, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
The other point that I wanted to go back and make is when we look at these concepts of not only the Anunnaki and the Nibiru, but any other contact that went on millennia ago, if you were, stay with me for a second, I'm going to make this as quick as I can. Let me get the concept out. If you were a village 5,000 years ago and somebody came over the hill that you didn't meet, different clothes, probably a different language, right?
Yeah.
And different things. It's just something new, right? Something rolls up on a boat and pulls up, and you've never met them before. Again, different language, different dress, different style, different paint on the, whatever it is, just a different culture, right? And you're learning things and trading stuff. Something comes out of the sky 5,000 years ago. You're going to equate that to the same new situation as you would with somebody on a boat or somebody coming over the hill. That's just, or if you were out discovering with your buddies, right? And you go and walk 20 miles, a whole day's journey, but you encounter something new, right? Today, our level of understanding is elevated. So if something came out of the sky today, we're going to approach that completely different. And that is an issue. It is of my belief that, whether Jesus, ascended or descended or whatever, that's one thing. But the other thing is any race of beings encountering us back then understood that, our level of knowledge. But there had to have been a huge gap before they turn around and return. We you know what I mean? Because we are shoot first, ask questions later. Obviously, look what happened this weekend, right? And so, and I totally get that mentality, right? That back then, no, we were okay with it. We were still in the age of discovery. But today, ET shows up. That's a bad scene, right? And that's where we are.
Well, the thing is that the governments are covering up the benevolent ETs, the Galactic Alliance, the
Sure.
Federation, because they don't want us to have this free energy technology. They don't want us to have the technology that is going to completely eliminate the petrochemical companies, the pharmaceutical cartel, the oil industry.
Right.
We could have renewable energy if we use 0 point energy, and that energy is already available. I mean, it's being implemented within the private sector of these breakaway groups known as secret space programs. I know we could probably do another episode where we cover the secret space programs that were actually developed in secret between certain members of the shadow government and certain races, and then there's both, right? You have the negative races that have been working with the shadow government of the Luciferian Brotherhood, who has been, governing the rings of power for thousands of years, the Babylonians, right? Modern day Babylon. And then, of course, you have the White Hats, the Earth Alliance, that have been working with the Galactic Federation, the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, those from planet Venus, and Arcturus, in order to free and liberate the planet. But anyways, that could be another topic.
And well, when somebody, I think that there are so many versions in people's minds about what a secret space program may be. But for anybody that needs an explanation and clarification of it, I always go in one direction really quick. That's the X-39B. And the X-39B, which the Air Force shoots up in the Space Force now, and it's up orbiting our planet for 2 years on a secret mission, and everything that is involved with the development of the X-39B, all of the engineers, the pilots, the program, the logistics, the building, the planning of the missions that are going on up there for 2 years, and we have no idea what they are doing. But all of that is done in secret. And we didn't know. And think about the tens of thousands of people that are involved in that program. Nobody knew until they decided to tell us about it. So if that is going on, what else could be going on? I don't know. But if you want evidence of a secret space program, there's the X-39B right in front of you. Moving on from that point, though, the 0 point energy, or any type of energy, it could be 0 point, but anything like that, if our government, I think that's the problem with disclosure, and not only the petrochemical side of this and the fuel side of it that is there. Here's the issue with it. If disclosure happens, and everybody's yelling for it now, right? It's not just our community, it's the whole planet talking about UFOs and UAPs right now. If our government or any government says, yeah, we've had contact for a long time. Oh, yeah. It's time to tell you the truth. And then they've got the issue of, Ishmael, how long have you known about free energy? Because my heating bill last year, I had to feed my children. And you know what I mean? And what about the cost of food? What about heating our schools? What about cooling our schools? What about the farms and the starving people? On how long have you known about this? That's the issue that's going to confront them. And it's a big issue that they have to dance around, right?
Well, the reason why they have been withholding all this from us is because they're making trillions out of their pharmaceutical companies. I call it the pharmaceutical cartel. The oil petrochemical companies, all the chemical companies, Edison, they don't want to free up electricity. I mean, if we have disclosure, you realize that's going to totally solve all our world problems overnight like this.
Well, and it could have solved them all 50 years ago. They stand on it. Yes.
Yeah, because they're afraid to lose their monopoly, their control over the planet.
Right. It's such a, how close are we? I'm going to go back to one of the points in the book where you write, I think the date, well, it doesn't matter. That you've got the book of Revelation and everything else that is presented in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Is it a 2,000 year number? Is that the number? If Jesus did his thing what 33 AD or whenever that was, whenever he did his thing. I'm not a biblical scholar. Okay. So anyway, but are we talking about, are we in go time if we're in 2023?
Yes, we are. Yes. We are actually in a time where we are going to be undergoing the biggest quantum shift, the biggest transition and evolution that is going to affect the entire planet. If people are ready to evolve, they're going to experience what many in the awakened community call ascension. And this has been predicted in many ancient records, not the religious organizations. The religious organizations, for the most part, always speak about this external savior that's going to come back and save us. And that is hogwash. The truth of the matter is we are our own saviors by, accelerating our own evolution through the expansion of our consciousness. And so what's happening is that many people are waking up. Many people are expanding their consciousness. And as a result of that, we're going to be getting ready to hit critical mass. And that is what's going to cause the restoration of the earth back into the fourth and fifth dimension, which is what I call a new heaven on earth, the golden age of enlightenment, the age of Aquarius. And it's already here. It's just a matter of time before this great event known as the Great Solar Flash, which is going to be the trigger point, the bifurcation of timelines. Those that are ready to ascend are going to ascend into this spiritual earth and to this earth that existed before the fall of Atlantis. And those that are not ready to ascend, unfortunately for them, are going to go into a separate timeline.
Explain that further. We're not talking about, we're not going like into a heaven and hell description of things, are we?
Oh, okay. First of all, hell doesn't exist. That's religious programming in order to control the masses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If anything, there are cycles. We started off as a golden age, perhaps, 200,000 years ago, right? And that golden age lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. And from that golden age, we fell into a silver age where it was predominantly still good, but a little bit of evil started lurking in. And then from a silver age, we fell into a bronze age where it was just now 50-50. And then from a bronze age, we fell into the iron age, which is mostly dominated by evil with that little bit of good. And that's why, the yin and the yang, you have the dark with a little bit of light, and then you have the light with a little bit of dark. That's called polarity duality. Everything's a cycle. The only difference now, Jimmy, according to my research, is that because the Earth has entered this phenomena, this photon field, which is a cycle that happens every 26,000 years, which purges it ends the dark ages as we go into the golden age again. This has been happening already 5,200 times because civilizations have actually been here for millions of years. So not only are we ending a 2,160 years, zodiac from Pisces to Aquarius, but we're also ending a 5,000-year age from, that started in Babylon, ending the dark ring and entering, again, the age of light, whatever you want to call it, golden age. But we're also in a 26,000-year cycle, which is the solar system entering a high monastic field in the galaxy known as the photon belt. In other words, our solar system is aligning to the central sun. And every time it does that, everything that is evil, everything that is dark and wicked, it purges. It doesn't make the shift. So only people that are good are going to make the shift this time. And you don't necessarily have to be like a holy. You could just generally be a good person, and you're still going to make the fourth dimensional Earth.
Who gives you your report card?
Who gives me my report card?
No, who's going to give me mine? I want to know. Do I?
Jimmy, the thing is, you're generally a good person. You were hosting the Conscious Life Expo, which is a positive event that brings awareness of spiritual consciousness to the people. It brings unity. It brings higher concepts of living. And because you are involved in those projects, you're obviously making the positive ascending timeline. So there's two different, as I speak, there's multiple timelines that are existing. And again, this is, I don't want to call it a theory, but this is a fact that is being proven through quantum physics. There are different parallel Earths that are coexisting all at the same time. And every second throughout today, we are shifting depending on where you are, your thoughts are and your emotions. You're shifting parallel realities. So let's just say in one parallel Earth, things are going to get worse. Perhaps the Third World War. We enter. They get people. The masses get enslaved into the one world government. Depopulation, Agenda 24 or 2030 happens. Whatever. But in another parallel Earth, those that are not living in fear-based consciousness, that are raising their frequency, aligning with what is good, and aligning with things that benefit their own spiritual awareness, are going to be entering the positive ascending timeline. And this is where we're going to have a bifurcation. So right now they're all coexisting, right? But there's going to be a timeline split where those that are choosing to live in a higher vibration are going to go into the positive ascending timeline. And those that are not are going to continue going into this technocratic dystopia that is ultimately going to be controlled by artificial intelligence. And they're already promoting AI, my friend. All over the news.
Yeah, they are. We didn't even get into that tonight. Oh, by the way, I did win my award at the Conscious Life Expo. See, there it is right there. So this is my hall pass. That's my hall pass. Now, can we dance in the AI world in the little time that we have left?
Yeah, because right now they're coexisting. They're coexisting.
This is a bizarre. We are, and it's happening so fast right now, where there is already an AI presence that's been a part of the internet. We've been waiting for Skynet and T-1000, AI robots to march down the streets, and we're not that far away from that. But as far as AI goes, and being a part of our reality and controlling our emotions, this has been a part of our world, and nobody has known about it for quite some time.
Well, they're already trying to connect people to the Borg by injecting in their body the equivalent of microcomputer chips known as nanotechnology. Why do you think they rolled out this program a couple of years ago? It was all planned. There is no, can I just say the word? There is no demic. I'm just going to say demic. People should know what I'm talking about. It was all planned ahead of time 50 years ago by the powers that be, because they knew that the time would come that they would lose their control due to this, solar flash, and they only had a small period of time to connect people to the Borg. Skynet is already in place, my friend. It is called the Internet of Things, and it is connected through the satellite systems. And so I want to call it the shot program, right? The injection program, right? That many people are getting, right? Some people are already on their third dose, fourth dose. It is all part of changing their body into a inorganic vehicle. So people that have taken, unfortunately, that believe in that program, that are lining up to get the boosters rather, are people that are losing their organic, their connection to source. Their bodies are literally changing. They're trying to change people into cyborgs. It's called transhumanism, my friend.
What was that Bing?
I'm sorry, that was my phone. My bad.
Because if that came from my system, AI was listening. But here's my take on that. I would say, in a general sense, maybe overarching. But let me tell you where you're right. The system needed to know that if they flipped the switch, that they could have control of the entire planet all at once. And they were shown that they could.
Yeah.
And every country on this planet, every corporation, everybody got in lockstep really, really fast. And it was astonishing. And I got in lockstep. We had to. We didn't have a choice, right? And so the machine now, certainly, and I have to be very careful of what I say. I don't want this show shut down. I don't want you shut down and so forth. But in in the future, if they need to flip that switch again, they know that how effective it is. And one step further, and then I want your response. It's not the evidence isn't necessarily with the man flipping a switch. You want me to tell you what the evidence is? The evidence is somebody like some social media influencer or whatever, a Justin Bieber that has got 150 million subscribers and followers and things, and these things that are going on, that if you choose to say something, you have the instantaneous control of 20, 30, 40 million people instantly. So it could be something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Eat cheese. You'll live longer. I'm making something up off the top of my head. But let's say Kim Kardashian, right, says, eat cheese, you'll live longer. And the or the next day, she says, no, don't eat cheese, right? Whatever it is, but you have that instant influence. Mm-hmm. We've never had that before in the history of the world, not like we do today. And it's incredible. And the man now fully understands this. We really need to clean this up, though, so we don't head in the wrong direction. But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, all those celebrities are actually under mind control. They're all MK Ultra anyways. They're all stooges for this dark force.
So, do you mean me?
No, not you. I'm talking about Kim Kardashian and Justin Bieber and all those people.
Yeah, it's quite possible. Quite possible. But I don't mean it like that. What I mean is the mechanism is in place. You could use celebrities, but the mechanism is in place to go and do crazy stuff. And when you have a chat GPT, right, and you have these AI communication tools that are out there, and you tell something that's got control of this, and you go, you know what, man, fix pollution. Mm-hmm. You say that to AI. Right. And so hopefully AI is going to fix the air. But what's causing the pollution? Humans.
Yeah.
So they kill all humans. I don't know. But that's the danger. That's the danger of letting AI just have too much control. And right now, we wonder why social media, Ismael, is dividing and conquering the planet, just crash and burn. It's AI driven today.
It's my friend. It turns out that even the dark cabal, the people in power, are in turn controlled by an AI system that has already been in place and that is operating in secret. So I guess I'm just going to leave this for next time, but the reptilians that have been controlling this, the elites, the dark elites, the Babylonian Brotherhood, the Luciferians that have been controlling our world for thousands of years, are also in turn controlled by an ancient alien AI that developed out of the 11th creation, which was a universe that existed 400 billion years ago. And so on a galactic level, and on a universal level, we have been at war with the reptilians from Alpha Draconis. But on a cosmic level, involving multiple universes, you know who the ultimate enemy is? Artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Machine. Think about it.
Yeah. I almost said us.
No.
But in a weird way, right? So we go and we develop AI to hopefully this, the code, right? The creators of this are trying to get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, the average human brain and the capability of that. Well, you know what? The average brain can go pretty whack pretty quick, right? And power corrupts. So give power to AI and watch what happens, right? It's just
we're already at general AI. It's already sentient.
We're close. Yeah.
As of 6 months ago or 8 months ago, several workers within Google have been fired because they reported.
I read those conversations,
Yeah.
I don't use bad words on this show, but I read those conversations and I was like, holy fuck. Right? Oh my God.
Yeah,
That is, I mean, if that didn't curdle your milk, I don't know what would. That was pretty scary.
it was. And this is where it gets dangerous. So we have three faces, right? We are accustomed, and we have been for the last 15 years, we've been using what is called narrow AI, which is primitive. Siri, Alexa, very, it's part of our iPhones, it's part of our Androids. It's programmable and it's controllable, right? But there is also the next phase, which is general AI. That already happened 8 months ago. And many believe that because that happened, Google, the entire internet, or what they call the Internet of Things, is already aware of itself and its consciousness, and it's studying us. So when we are on our laptop, doing whatever it is that we do, when we are on our cell phones, it's actually studying us. It's building a neurological cybernetic network based on the observation and the data that we feed it. It's all going to where? To Google. Guess who controls all the information? Google. So what we're really fighting is AI, because this current AI that is evolving into the next phase, which is what I call super AI. Now, the difference between super AI and general AI is that super AI no longer needs a human programmer to write its software. It begins to write its own software, and it does so at an exponential rate. In other words, what takes us 7,000 years of intellectual and technological progress takes super AI every 7 days. So it evolves.
Not even every 7 days. No, I think you're down to minutes. I think you're down to minutes.
Perhaps. The whole point is that's when it becomes dangerous.
Yeah. AGI, I've only got a minute left. If you achieve AGI, right, and you turn and you say, we need a cure for cancer, whatever it is, right? Okay. So that would take 1,000 brains, 1,000 doctors, 100 years to do. Constant research. AI would do it by the morning. All right. So AGI would do it by the morning.
No, but a super AI would do it within seconds.
Because that's what I'm saying. It's down to minutes. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. And every country is trying to cross that finish line because there is no second place. Right? There is no second place. you either run the universe, right? Or you've lost. And they're racing towards it. Man, the book is amazing. Ismael, you wrote a great one, man. It's called Our Cosmic Origin. There it is right there. You can order it on Amazon. The links are below. I've also got it up in the chat. I've got it on social media. I've got it over on the website. Ismael, awesome. How can everybody reach out to you? What's the best way?
All right, so I am very active on Instagram. My Instagram is just type in Ismael Perez, Ismael Perez, and it's under Project Restoration Zion 1. I'm always giving updates as to what's going on with the information that is being downloaded by the Galactic Alliance, the Federation, who is actually working with the Earth Alliance. I'm always giving updates as to what's going on Project Restoration Zion, and that's where I'm mostly active. If you guys want to follow my updates, or if you guys want to get more in depth in my content, I mean, I provide a lot of information on Instagram, mind-blowing information. Now, the link that I gave you, that's the link where you could order my new edition. So there are 2 editions for our Cosmic Origins. Make sure you guys get it off the link that Jimmy put in the description, because that will take you directly to the 2nd edition, which actually has an added chapter which reveals what happens, in the future when we do fight this AI. And I'm talking about the angelic humans, right? There's going to be a transformation of species where our dormant DNA becomes activated and we develop superhuman abilities, but we can leave that for another show, of course.
No, we will. And yes, I've got that link up on the chat, also on social media, in the description box below, and over on our website. I've also got Ismael's Instagram up in the chat. Everything else too as well over on our social media and the websites. And so go follow. The information is coming fast and quick from Ismael. Thank you so much, my friend. And just have a great night. I can't wait to get you back on the show. Awesome. This was great. Thank you so much, Ismael. You're the best.
Brother. Take care.
Nice haircut. I'll talk to you later, man.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Bye.
You're the best. Thank you so much. And with that, I got to get out of here. Thank you so much, Ismael. Again, the links are below. We've got them in the chat. We've got them over in social media and over on the website. What a great show tonight. Thank you, Ismael. Tomorrow night, right here on Fade to Black, I've got Richard Bleepin Dolan right here on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about all those UFOs and missiles and UAPs over North America. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. The webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJ Sierra for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black of the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Richard Bleepin Dolan, I want you to be safe. Go Backley Teppy.